Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. I'm Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. You can follow me on X Twitter at Movies TV Mad and on Instagram and on Threads at Movies TV Mad. X, a very warm welcome to Sunday's edition of the DCU Daily. Watching James Gunn attempt to climb out of each hole he digs for himself is a bit like watching Mr. Bean try to perform open heart surgery. Well, now his lead actor in Superman, David Coronswet, is getting in on the act because he's been quoted in saying that he may not return as Superman. Now, this is a very, very clumsy thing to say in an interview. Why? Because it poses questions. People start to say, well, mate, why wouldn't you return as Superman, right? The DCU is being launched within your movie. You know, we expect to see you. But don't forget that I forewarned about this very, very situation. When the film was called Superman Legacy, I started to get very suspicious that James Gunn was planning on killing off Superman in this movie. Now, I don't know if that was a thing, but conveniently, when other people started putting 2 and 2 together and maybe making 4, maybe making 6 or even 60, he changed the title and dropped Legacy. Now, he'll never admit that that's the reason he dropped the name Legacy. Legacy is a definition of what you create with it in your life. A legacy is something that people discuss during your funeral. So this is why people were putting 2 and 2 together and maybe thinking, well, maybe Superman is killed off in this Superman Legacy movie. I liked the title Superman Legacy, bit of a mistake to cut the legacy out, but he was probably right to do so because people were starting to put it together. And I'm not totally convinced that Superman won't be killed off in this movie. But David Corenswet could have innocently just been saying, look, this film may not be successful, so I may not get to return. That's maybe what he means. But it's just something you don't want to talk about at this point. So it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, what did he actually mean by he may not return as Superman? And this is what I'm saying. I wouldn't be having this discussion with you guys today if he never said it. It's just not a smart thing to say. And what's going to happen is, in the next few days, they'll find a way, they'll say something to try and dig themselves out of yet another hole that they've dug for themselves. And, you know, but yes, I was very, very suspicious from the very beginning with the title Superman Legacy that David Corenswet, you know, would be killed off as Superman by the end of this movie. But there's also another theory of mine I have discussed before, that maybe David Corenswet actually isn't playing Superman, isn't playing Clark Kent, because we know that Lex Luthor, Nicholas Hoult, is going to be playing with the technology of human cloning in this movie. We know there's a version of Superman, of David Corenswet's Superman, that is a clone. There may be more than one Superman clone in this movie. It could be that David Corenswet is only playing the Superman clone. And maybe that's why the costume looks the way it is. It's not cope, right? If that's the costume, that's the costume, right? I don't like the costume. I don't. It looks okay in the teaser, by the way. It's still not a great suit, but at least it looks okay in live action. And for me, as a Superman fan that wants this to be a great movie, by the way, whatever I think of what they've done and how the studio has conducted itself and some of the red flags that James Gunn's been giving us ever since taking charge of DC Studios and the DCU, I still want Superman to be successful because I love Superman. This could be the final Superman movie of my lifetime. I am 52 years old. I'm not getting any younger. But it could be that David Corenswet isn't actually playing Superman. It'll be very interesting to see what David meant by he may not be returning as Superman. That's not always how it works. And as I say, he could just mean that if the movie isn't successful, he won't return. Now, Brandon Routh only made Superman Returns. He returned for the CW's Arrowverse in Crisis on Infinite Earths. He looked amazing in that costume. And I've said before, that Kingdom Come costume is better than James Gunn's Kingdom Come costume. A costume designed by people working on a low budget or a lower budget than a movie TV show. That's still insane to me. Forget the movie costumes, that Kingdom Come costume is absolutely fantastic. But anyway, so Brandon only made one movie. In fact, Henry Cavill did a few movies, didn't he? I mean, with all the talk about him being cut loose too quickly and being treated badly, which he absolutely was. He did Man of Steel, he did Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice, he did Justice League, which is nothing to crow about, and he did Zack Snyder's Justice League, and he cameoed in Black Adam as well. But I think if you look at the 21st century, it's Tom Welling that's got the most appearances as this character. I know he wasn't ever really Superman, he was Clark Kent, but he was the character, he did embody the character, and I think he's had the most screen time in the 21st century as Clark Kent, and there's no question about that. David Coronswet is a very, very good actor, but what has he done? Not much, really. That's okay. To me, David Corenswet is untried to me, as a movie actor. I'll be honest, I had to start going onto YouTube to check him out once he was cast as the character. I knew jack about him, but a lot of fans wanted him to play Superman. David has, petitioned to play Superman for a very, very long time. He wants this role. He's a good actor. He'll do a good job. Whether the film's good, bad, mid, or indifferent, he will be a very good Clark Kent and a very good Superman. That's one thing we can tell from that brilliant teaser trailer, and it still is, in my mind, a brilliant teaser trailer. It's the stuff that come afterwards, with the TV spot with the flying, that's been a disaster, and a lot of the mistakes that James Gunn's made within the marketing situation, leaking stuff, leaking information, then purposely denying it to create hype. That's where the disaster's coming from, and it is a disaster for an actor playing Superman that's supposed to be part of a brand new DCU, brand new universe, to actually be saying, well, you know what? I may not be returning, and it doesn't really embody much confidence, does it? And to me, when I saw that, and I mean, I'm not really that surprised by anything people from New Hollywood say these days, but to me, that's incredibly naive to say something like that. And I don't understand why an actor would say that who's part of a brand new franchise, that I may not come back. That's not how it always works. So I'll be going to the cinema on July the 11th to see how this film works out. It seems like we've been talking about Superman, this film, for a lifetime, and we are getting closer and closer. There is no escaping that release date for you, or for I, or for James Gunn. There's a lot of opinions about James Gunn, the DCU. There's some people who want it to succeed. There's some people who want it to fail. I absolutely don't want anything to fail. That's not the way I'm made. But I must call things out that I don't like, and I must credit and give compliments to people when they do things that I like. This is how I roll. I don't roll with an agenda. I think about a week ago on Twitter, someone said to me, you're a Gunn hater. I'm not a Gunn hater. I don't hate James Gunn. I've tried to make my position clear on James Gunn, that he's a capable writer-director. He's a bit of a one-trick pony, and I'm not sure he was the right man to write and direct a Superman movie. But of course, I can be proved wrong on July the 11th, and I will judge this movie, as I keep on saying, on its merits. But yeah, I'm absolutely stunned that David Corenswet said that he may not return as Superman. It's a bit of a strange thing to say, and it creates more kind of a lack of faith in the film. So I am absolutely, my imagination's running wild right now. We've seen this teaser. I mean, it won't be too long until we actually see the main trailer for this film And that, my friends, is going to be very, very revealing because we saw a lot of great things. Now, James Gunn says we barely saw anything of the movie in that teaser, and that's a good thing. I don't want to be spoiled, but I'm very interested what this movie actually is. So James Gunn should let this movie do the talking for him, and we should let the movie kind of drive our opinions. We have to be honest about this movie, no matter what we think of James, what we think of WB. We have to be fair to the movie, go and watch it, judge it on its merits. Now, someone posed another interesting question on X Twitter yesterday. Was James Gunn's Slate, Gods and Monsters DCU Part 1 Slate, a lie? Now, this was a very interesting question, and I do feel that James did pull some of that slate out of his backside to create hype for Superman. It's very, very interesting that all of a sudden Swamp Thing doesn't seem to be happening. When you announce James Mangold to write and direct from his own mind a Swamp Thing movie, you think, wow. We were all saying, wow, exciting project. Whatever you think of the DCU, WB, whatever, that's exciting for any DC fan. I love Swamp Thing. I love, I like that side of DC, Constantine and all of that. I want to see Constantine with Swamp Thing. But it's interesting, isn't it? Now that Constantine 2 is happening, will we see Keanu Reeves, Constantine, with his own Swamp Thing? That could be interesting. And maybe that's the reason that Swamp Thing isn't happening anymore. Maybe. I mean, as you know, Constantine 2 is going to be an Elseworld movie. You could do both. But when you announce something like a Swamp Thing movie by such a prominent, famous director, and then you do this press thing that they did last week, and you go, you know what? It's on the back burner. Me and James Mangold still discuss it, as Gunn said, and that's it. What do you mean? You still discuss it from time to time. That's what he said. This means that Swamp Thing probably will never happen, sadly, right? Because if it's one character on a DC villain you'd love to see, it's Swamp Thing. More than Clayface, and it looks like Clayface is the substitute for Swamp Thing. And it just isn't the same thing. James Watkins is a really good director. He'll do a good job. But, look, the guy who wrote Clayface is a prominent storyteller. There's no question about that. So it's interesting. We'll see what happens there. But yeah, I do feel that elements of that slate, let's say, don't ring true. You know my thoughts about Brave and the Bold. It was announced originally on the slate. Gunn now says he's working with a writer, but he's not happy to reveal that writer because he doesn't want to put pressure on that writer. And I said at the time, if this is the truth, and I'm not sure that it is, by the way, it's because the identity of the writer, is someone we're not going to be happy with. Don't be surprised if Christina Hodson is writing Brave and the Bold, so incoming disaster, and who knows who's actually going to end up directing this movie. Andy Muschietti is not involved in the development of this movie. Basically, what's going to happen is, I still believe he was never going to direct it, but let's just say in some fantasy world, he is. It looks to me that they're going to develop the movie and then say, here you are, Andy, it's over to you now. You tell the actors where to stand and how to perform, and that's going to be his role, right? It's basically like directing a long-running TV show. As a director, you really have nothing to do with the development of the script. They give you the script, you break it down, and you have to direct the episode. That's what the MCU is. That's what the DCU is. Don't like it. I don't think it's a good way of making movies. When I see anything written and directed by the same person, I know I'm going to get that person's vision. When I see Star Wars 77 written and directed by George Lucas, I know it's from his mind and his heart. It's all him, right? The story. Now, don't get it twisted. It takes, making a movie or a TV show is a collaborative effort. And most times that the crew are carrying said director. But when someone writes and directs something, at least you know the story and the characters and the motivations of those characters all come from that director. And I love that. Sometimes great films have been written by one person and directed by another. A great example is Superman 78, which is absolutely, to this day, one of the greatest superhero movies ever made, and there's no question about that.